Hello readers, I'm Amy and today we are doing Half Wrapped because I'm actually remembering to wrap up my books before I have a huge list of like 17 things to talk about. So if you are not familiar with my Half Wrapped series, I got really tired of doing these huge wrap-ups because I wouldn't remember some of the plots of the books that I read, or it would feel repetitive because I already did standalone reviews. So books that I have not reviewed that I have read lately, I'm going to talk about in my Half Wrapped. I recently did a standalone review for When We Collided for the book club that I'm in. I talked about romance books because I just finished Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and I did a week of reading Matt Haig, which I didn't really mean to do, but I finished 3 books then by that author. So this is going to be the books that I read in between, and we're going to start off with Detransition Baby. This has been in a lot of conversations. Apparently, Tori Peters was up, or is up, for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and a lot of people were debating that because she's trans. Personally, congratulations. Love it. Love to see it. Good for you. The book for me was fine. It wasn't really to my taste, and I think a lot of that could have kind of been like the mood that I was in. Gave it 3.5 stars, but essentially you are following these 2 people who used to be in a couple. They were both male to female transitioned, and then one of the couple detransitions, and throughout the book we're kind of talking, we're looking at him as he's talking about kind of his weird gender feelings. I'm saying his because throughout most of the book, pronouns are he, him, but also like still really unsure of himself. A lot of the detransitioning was for safety reasons, but this couple wanted to have a baby and it wasn't gonna happen for multiple reasons. They had a lot of troubles as a couple, and then the person that detransitioned thought that he was sterile, ends up he was not. He gets someone pregnant, and the book is discussing whether or not this person can convince the mother of his child that they should include the other person from the couple and maybe like raise the child as a throuple. And I think that was such a fascinating conversation to have. I love what Tori Peters had to say about society, about gender and politics. Like I said, the book was fine for me. There wasn't really a ton of plot to it. It is more character heavy. But that said, like, I enjoyed it well enough, and good for her for getting nominated for one of the women's prize things. I don't really know how it works, but she was a nominee, so that's cool. I also did make a eyeshadow palette based off of this book, not like an actual one that you can wear, unfortunately, but over on my design Instagram, and I've been sharing them on my stories for my regular Instagram, but I have been taking book covers and turning them into eyeshadow palettes in Photoshop because it's just really fun. So editing Amy, pop up a picture of the palette here, and I'll have it on my Instagram. I think I have it scheduled for like a couple of weeks from now. But that was fun, and that was just a way for me to like celebrate the book in my own way. Then we have Duma Key, which I should probably get off my shelf. So when I started reading Duma Key, this has been on our Stephen King shelf for a couple of years now, and I keep eyeing it because it's about an artist, and I finally go ahead and pick it up. I think it's like a little over 600 pages, at least the hardcover copy is. And I was talking with Chris, my husband Chris, because he's a big Stephen King fan, and we're thinking I just really have a taste for the less loved Stephen King. Like, I don't know that I've heard anyone talk about Duma Key, and I start reading this book and I'm like, this is really interesting. It's very slow moving, very, very character focused, but something about it just kept grabbing at me, and I love the way that he talked about art in this book. And I'm wondering, like, is this what he thinks of writing, and he just took out the word writing and put in the word art? Like, the way the character talks about art and what it means to him and the way art is described is just really well done. I was gearing up for one of his like bad, weird endings, but I was actually pretty happy with the ending of this book. It was weird, nonetheless, but I think it was a good ending. You know, it's got kind of a supernatural vibe to it. I am wondering, I'm not like an avid Stephen King reader. I was not into The Shining at all. I read like half of that book. I was so bored. But I'm wondering if the things that take place in this book are related to The Shining, because you have this kind of like fortune telling power, or this power that can kind of make things happen through art, and not knowing anything about The Shining, I can't be sure if it is The Shining, but it seems like it could be related. And you know, all the Stephen King books are supposed to be linked to one another somehow. So I really enjoyed this. I like the Stephen King books that don't get as much as attention. I thought Gerald's Game was great. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon was great. It's also one of his shortest books. Really enjoyed Do McKee. Really enjoyed Needful Things. That's still, I think, my favorite book of his. Also, just this cover with like the holographic title, and I love the color on it and everything. I also did an eyeshadow palette for this one in Photoshop that I'm pretty proud of. And I actually named the shades because I'd read it recently. Yeah. Tell me what your Stephen King taste is if you read him, because I seem to go for the books that don't get as much attention. Those are the ones that I tend to really enjoy. And his popular ones, not so much. Like Salem's Lot, there was so much taken from Dracula that I'm like, eh. The Shining was so boring. Pet Sematary is good though. I did enjoy Pet Sematary. Anyways, last book I'm going to talk about here was actually a buddy read. So I started reading Honey Girl, and Ashley from Read Now, Sleep Later was on Twitter like, oh, I'm reading Honey Girl. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm also reading Honey Girl. Impromptu buddy read. And so we did an impromptu buddy read that lasted about 24 hours before we both decided that we were really bored. Honey Girl is not at all what it is advertised to be, and put it down. Honey Girl is really pushed as this cute romance where these two women get married in Las Vegas, and then one of them goes to find her new wife to try and make the relationship work. It sounds like a romance. It's way more of a found family thing. The romance, at least for the first half of the book, wasn't really focused on or discussed that much, and I talked to Ashley and she was talking to me, and we're like, we're bored. We're really bored with this. So ended up both putting it down, so I didn't really feel bad for DNFing. But Ashley's like, well, hey, we should still try and do a buddy read. So she mentioned wanting to read more of Talia Hibbert's backlist. I believe she has finished the Brown Sisters series. I also finished the Brown Sisters series. So we talked about a couple of books. I looked at what was available, and we got to read A Girl Like Her, which is the first book in the Ravenswood series. There are three, there's like 1, 2, and 3, and then there's a 1.5, which is about another character. 1.5 I cannot get access to, but we read A Girl Like Her by Talia Hibbert, and I might try and read the other books in this series. So for anyone who was wondering about the strength of the writing and the characterization in Talia Hibbert's backlist of books, check it out. A Girl Like Her was almost as amazing as the Brown Sisters. You have this woman with autism. She's seen as the town harlot for reasons that, like, you're waiting to figure out through the book. You have the really hot guy who's really sweet to her and is all about consent. And Talia Hibbert is just a genius. And this isn't going to make any sense to anyone unless you've experienced it. And I can't explain what happened. But there is this sex scene that just, I don't know what it was. It was so, there was so much emotional connection and really like bringing the characters together, and it was so beautifully described and beautifully written. I am reading through this scene, and as we are getting to the climax, I start to cry. Like, there are tears pouring slowly down my face as I am reading this scene. And I don't know what got to me, but something about it was just so beautifully written and executed, and just highly recommend. I definitely want to finish. I want to see the Ravenswood series through. I hope that somehow I can find a way to get book 1.5. We'll see. But I at least want to read books 2 and 3. So that is going to be it for this little half-wrapped video. Let me know what you think. Let me know your Stephen King opinions down below. Let me know if you are loving Talia Hibbert, because there's not really an option to hate it, because Talia Hibbert's just a genius. So that's not an opinion, it's a fact. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media. I have lots of social medias. I have like 4 Instagram accounts. I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.